and then I'll just do a bit of a... So welcome everybody. This was an additional event to the Breaking Ground Festival, but I'm really glad that Brian made the connection into the Liverpool John Moores University. So I'm going to hand over to Anthony, who's going to manage this session, and looking forward to it. And I'll keep letting people in.
Thanks very much, Paul. Apologies for the first slide on the font there. I don't know what's happened. I didn't mean to be screaming my name across the bottom and a smaller font for the event. But as you can see, my name's Anthony Seasman, and I work at LJMU as a project manager on a business support project called Clean Growth UK, which just briefly is funded by Research England, and its partners are Brighton and Portsmouth University, where we've created sort of like a triple helix, if you like, where academia comes together with local authorities and the public sector and private sector to tackle all challenges related to clean growth. But obviously at LJMU we do a lot of work around housing because we've got a very strong built environment department and other departments that link up really well, which I'll go into, because a lot of the work that we're doing is cross-faculty. So today, what we thought we'd do for our hour is I'll do a presentation. It'll probably take about 20-25 minutes. I've got quite a lot of case studies in there because I spoke to Brian later this week. So a few of the initial slides, there's probably information that you guys will all know anyway. So I'll fire through those. But then there's a lot of facilities that we've got access to at the university, a lot of things that we're working on. You know, some interesting knowledge transfer partnership projects, for example. And we've got European funding at the moment that can help SMEs in the Liverpool City region, which is where we've got a lot of our case study examples from to show all the work that we're doing on site. And then I'll introduce you to the team because we've got a questions and answer session that, you know, will roughly take up half of the hour. But I've got a few academics who are going to be in the audience, and I'll introduce them towards the end. So obviously this is something that we're quite keen on at the university. We did an event in January called Low Carbon Homes, which is a national organiser, but they use a model whereby they organise them in sub-regions and regions across the UK, and they use a facilitator to kind of access local organisations there to bind it all together. So LJMU, we put our hands up, and we hosted the one in January, and we had over 200 people at that event, which was really good. But we were looking at the retrofit challenge within the Liverpool City region. I'm sure you guys can read that slide, and you're all very much aware of the challenge around retrofit. Oops, sorry. Okay, that slide's not working. Apologies for that. So just moving on to facilities. I'm just talking to Paul there, and he has noticed the 3 houses on the Barham Street campus. A few years ago now, LJMU collaborated with BRE and set up an innovation park that can be accessed by local companies and organisations in the Liverpool City region. So the Barham Street campus, as you used to go over the old flyover, you could see 3 houses standing quite isolated over to the side. Look very different to the other buildings around them. Urban splash in front of those 3 houses. Excuse me. And we've also got another modular house because that site is in development. So but there are differences. Essentially, the difference is some of the layout, because they've been built to replicate a house from the 20s, 1970s, and after 2000. So essentially, a lot of the changes is in the construction of the houses, as well as like the 1920s having concrete floor and things like that. Like I say, they all look identical, but they allow us to test products in different houses to see how they operate with different housing stock. So that's a little, as you can see, they do look identical. You can see with the numbers of windows is just one indication to show that that they are built differently. And also, when you actually look at the fact that they've all got double glazing, they're also built in such a way that it assumes that a lot of houses have actually been retrofit to a certain standard. So a lot of it, what we've done at the university is we've actually monitored these houses in order to simulate the differences. In general, you know, you get a lot of heat loss from the house that was built around the 20s and 30s. And the 70s generally as a nice ambient temperature attached to it, but there's a lot of cold spots. As you can see, that one in the middle. So they are performing fairly typically. And then in by far the best in terms of heat loss, but has and potentially show we're kind of locking air into the house. So probably in the future, you know, that we're aware that there's going to be issues with air quality inside houses. And what we've done is we developed 3D models, because what we like to do when we're testing things in the houses is obviously we do physical tests. We can put technologies into the house and test them physically, but we always like to simulate as well, because we like to use the predictive dynamic response of each building, and that way we can kind of judge the efficacy of our simulation, so that we can see in the future that when we do simulate things, we can look back and say, well, you know, we're getting a very consistent reading here. So it's just to kind of like compare the two. And generally with the thermal comfort, as I said before, there's no overheating problems in the 1930s. 70s, general nice comfort level. And in the 2000 house, there's potential for overheating in winter months. Also looking at the improved air tightness, increased loft insulation, glazing, and external walls. So as you can see, much as they just look like 3 houses, there's a lot of data that is underpinning the performance of their environmental performance. So when we then take technologies that SMEs in the region are developing, we can give different scenarios for them to test their products, and a lot of the time, what we're actually getting is, I don't know if you hear the technology readiness levels, but at the university, essentially, this is where we might be helping a business to develop a product, but they might already have that product. It might be an idea, or they might already have a prototype. So that's just the way that we measure the stages of where a product is up to, because at some point we need to make a prototype, put it in the houses, and get some real life data. Like I said before, it's about interrogating the data, so that's why we like to simulate as well as to test physically as well. You know, we've had housing associations coming to us to look at different retrofit technologies. Again, it's about informing investment decisions. Is the technology accurate in what it says it will do? Is it a solution? Is there an economy of scale? Is it worth investing in and rolling out across many houses? And also, as I'll come to explain later on, we're trying to set up a housing group so that we can try and create a central register so that all these findings can be shared, so that we're not reinventing the wheel each time. And the houses are great because they present a safe environment, but as I'll go into with some case studies later on, we are doing some environmental monitoring for some housing associations, and we've actually been doing that in people's homes and apartments. So you know, we're very flexible for what's needed, but you know, if a business comes to us or a housing association, you know, we're flexible in how we can work. But clearly, having those houses there as a safe environment is a real asset. And they're considering occupancy and behavioural patterns. There is a case study that I'll come to later on where we fitted it with timers, so that we try to replicate a family of 4 living in a house, switching appliances on and off in order to try and give a fairly accurate measure. But what you'll find with a lot of the business that come to us, they're essentially looking at the performance of their product because they want to market that. So whilst we're a university, so we don't give people a stamp of approval that it's a British standard approval. We don't do that, but we actually do produce a report from an honest broker. So if it is something that you're developing, then at least you get some really accurate, reliable data that you can then use as, do you want to keep throwing, good money into an idea? So of course you want to know that you're on the right path, especially when you're at the feasibility and prototype stage. And this is essentially who we've identified as our audience, because we tend to, through our European funded projects, which I'll go into a little bit later, we tend to work with SMEs, but that does include obviously charities and social enterprises. So that's generally when they've got products and services that they want us to test in their houses as part of our assistance for their business. But then you've also got landlords, private landlords, housing associations who we're doing a lot of work with. And we're also, as an anchor institution, we're part of the Clean Growth Partnership Consortium, if you like, that's trying to work towards carbon net zero. And part of that throughout our projects is trying to help Liverpool City region to be carbon net zero. And of course, that's something that we work with other partners to deliver, something that we're fully committed to, and also looking at a 10-year strategy ourselves as a university to get to carbon net zero. So there's obviously the regional viewpoint on this. So this is our flagship project at the moment. It's called Low Carbon Eco Innovation, and we've been around for about 6 years. We've done a hell of a lot of work with local businesses that not all are related to housing, because we work across the spectrum in low carbon eco innovation. We work with engineers, advanced manufacturers, even just officers who are looking to do carbon assessment, being part of the supply chain. It's really variable, and when we look at the mix of businesses we work with, we really couldn't pull out any one sector that we say, well, we get a lot more in this sector than others. We really work across the board in that project. But clearly, we have been doing a lot of work in-house with those companies, because we've worked over the last 6 years with at least 300 businesses, maybe pushing towards 400 companies. And this is one called Energy Fairies. Some of you might have come across these guys, because they're very good at networking. And we did a piece of work from them years ago, and it wasn't anything to do with this project, but just wanted to get that across, that we do take relationships serious with our companies. So they always come back to us if they've got a new idea or a new approach or an idea of a new business model. We're very much keen to be a part of the journey with businesses. So they were new deal providers when we first met them about 7 years ago, but then they came up with an idea they called it flutter shutter. And it's a nice process to go through, because we knew them. They came to us when they had the idea and it was just in their heads. So we sat them down with some of our materials experts who gave them advice on the materials that they should be using in the prototype. So again, you're kind of taking some trusted advice at that stage with people with experience. And then we moved that forward to feasibility, where we simulated it and used the model that we were talking about before. And then we actually got a prototype built. We installed it into the house, and then we were able to then see how it performed physically, so that they had that data. And what we found with their flutter shutter was that the room heated up about 36% quicker with this flutter shutter. And what you don't see there is a transparent material that's between the shutter and the window, just to add a lot more insulation. It's barely visible, but that's what the innovation is around that product. And I know that they're looking for funding at the moment for investment in order to take this to market. Again, going back to the technology readiness levels, that can start from the idea and the conception in your mind right through to being out in the market and exploiting the market opportunity, and anything in between, which is feasibility, prototype, testing, validating, even going back another stage or two, because you need to do a bit of trial and error testing. And then you obviously need to do some market research, be investor ready, and get it out to market. I touched upon these guys before, Bristol Blue Green. So they had this product. They keep developing, a second phase of it and a third phase. So it's getting better all the time. And it's a vaulted management system, and we put this into the houses. We bought a lot of appliances for the house, which looked a little bit dodgy on our procurement because European funding doesn't allow you to buy kettles and washing machines, but it was for this project, and we were putting appliances on a regular basis throughout the day on timers in order to see how effective the product is. The benefit to Bristol Blue Greens, obviously, they can show that this reduced people's household bills by 7.5%. And there are some appliances that give you better readings than that, but this was just generally across the board, because some appliances don't really achieve a 7.5% saving. So it's quite a variable situation. And so across the board, they can quite comfortably look at somebody's household bills and say, well, for the investment of £300, you can save X amount back. This is another project called Air to Energy, which is installers of air grounds water source heat pumps. And we tested this. And again, going back to being in possession of some marketing data, this company felt that there was a lack of consumer knowledge around heat pumps. And I think that's also a real issue in this area, because obviously there's a lot of technologies out there that people can sell you, and it's quite difficult to know who to trust when you're looking at making a purchasing decision, or which technology will work best for you. So that's kind of what we also try to help with, and I don't want to undermine that point either, because as a university we are seen as an honest broker, because obviously we don't when you see the reports just report on the performance of the product, and we hope it works for the company, but if it doesn't, that's the way it is. We just monitor and measure and supply the data. There are a few others that I didn't want to write up because I know these companies really well. V-Solar is a solar thermal heating system, and the innovations combining two ideas really, which was a certain tile that they had IP for, and also a roofing system whereby it was heating up water. But actually what they wanted to test really was how quickly, when the tank was emptied, how quickly that water would warm up. And we did that test throughout a whole 12-month cycle, and they got that support free through our low carbon eco innovatory project. Also with Farragher Group, we don't have any imagery for this just yet, but at some point we hope to be building one of the pods onto our site. Farragher Group came to us with an issue about so obviously with housing, it's not just about the fabric. We're looking at aging population, independent living, and one of the ideas the Flanagans had was to build a pod to extend a person's home later on in their life, and this pod could be dismantled when it's not needed, so you're not making a bricks and mortar change to the house. It's something that can be taken away, and 90% of it can still be reused. It's only the roof that would need to be replaced in future. And we helped with the design of that, which was looking at SIP panels and changing the size of them, because one of the problems that we've got is some of these houses that are being extended, they're quite difficult to access. So these SIP panels were resized to be taken through the house if it's very difficult to get round the back. So yeah, we get a lot of these technical challenges that we love and we're quite happy to work around. And Flanagan's are actually that product is actually in the market, and there's quite a few local authorities that are buying them. FRC Group is a really interesting one because, like I say, with clean growth, whether it's housing, circular economy ideas, we work across sectors. Well, FRC Group have come up with an idea of reusing mattresses, and obviously I'm sure quite a few of you will have heard of them. So the initial idea that we helped them with was cleaning up mattresses so that they can take waste mattresses, clean them up and give them to people in furniture poverty. Then throughout that, they've realised that actually and I'm going with rough figures here. They thought, well, actually we can recondition 35%, so 65% still not really in a position where we can pass them on to somebody else so that they've got a new mattress. So what can we do with that waste to stop it from going to incineration or landfill? So they come up with an idea to develop an insulation product. And I won't go into too much detail with that because one of the people on the panel, Ana Bras, she's working on a project. So I'll allow Ana to talk about that because she's a materials expert. But again, just going back to the technological readiness levels, Ana's doing a lot of work around a feasibility to see if this idea has got legs. And if it has, then clearly there's going to be a proper sustainable business that can be set up, which is achieving a truly circular economy idea, because you're closing the loop on roughly 80,000 mattresses that are wasted in the Liverpool City region every year. Yandir is a infrared heating company that we're going to be setting up and testing in the houses, and a Proxford house in there, which is connected to Savini. This is one where we're not actually using our houses, we're actually doing stuff on site for those guys, and that's environmental monitoring. And I've got a colleague, Badr, who's going to be on the panel as well, so we can discuss the work that we're doing around environmental monitoring with him. This is a really interesting one, and I wanted to put this in because obviously it's housing, but also because it's increasingly clear to us that you might look at built environment and think, well, okay, that's where the solution lies. But actually, what is the USP for the university is that we can bring together different faculties in order to deliver a project. So in this case, this is Cobalt Housing wanting to inform their investment decisions. So they were looking to set up a system, like an asset management kind of system, where they could maybe predict, like a predictive maintenance of, say, boilers. So rather than just put boilers in and then 10 years later strip them out, put new boilers in, maybe they could monitor those boilers to see if they're still okay. So, you know, you don't have to strip them all out. So that's just one example, but they wanted to have that investment knowledge across the whole range. And actually, when we discussed it with Knowledge Transfer Partnership, because we were applying for funding on their behalf, it kind of came round to being a behavioural change project, in the sense that, well, rather than do that and then decide what's best for tenants from the top down, why don't we take a bottom-up approach? So the whole project got flipped, and it now sits within our psychology department. So whilst it's supported by built environment and engineering, because we will be building a system to support the KTP associates, and we also have human geographers on board looking into like community wealth generation, it's actually led by psychology because that is the primary emphasis to this project. So I thought that was an interesting one to put in there, because what we're finding with any projects that address clean growth, that they are cross-cutting and, you know, very much needs a collaborative approach. Even that's within a university where we have to bring our faculties together to work together on projects that historically, you know, our psychology guys might never have worked on a housing project, but it's something that we're gearing up for now. On the back of that, and as well as delivering the low carbon homes event in January, we've been talking to the local authorities and city region and also housing associations. And what we're looking to do is to set up a housing innovation group. It's kind of building on that, on what we've got with the houses, which is an asset, to try to develop a central register. So that project with Cobalt Housing, we work with a guy called Dave Woods, and Dave is very happy for anyone to contact him throughout the lifetime of this project to find out what's going on, and we can share the data. So it's not, you know, with these issues, again, looking at the city region and the general emphasis on that we all need to move forward to a carbon net zero future, it's about sharing information. And it's also, if we're going to apply for funding, we shouldn't be duplicating our funding. So whatever we do for Cobalt will go into the central register, and all the other groups all the other organisations in that group can access that. So again, you know, this will be looking at fabric, it will be looking at microgeneration and behaviour, And that's why, as the university, we took it upon ourselves to try to facilitate this group, because with all that at our disposal, we can kind of be the facilitator in the middle of that. Also working with the Low Carbon Homes event, they've got some ideas to develop a national hub where you would take certain aspects of that and bring some national groups to the table as well. So we're very much behind that, and we will represent the Liverpool City region on that group. I just thought that I'd give a quick plug for the project that I work on, because essentially we do have a lot of projects. I've mentioned our flagship one, Low Carbon Eco Innovatory. We also have LCR4 Start, which is enabling businesses to embrace digitisation. And we've got EcoI Northwest, which kind of helps businesses with the commercialisation of their innovations. So we tend to have a plethora of these projects, and they all have their own separate brands. But what we do behind the scenes is we all work very closely together. So essentially, if a business was to come to LJMU, we would generally put you through Low Carbon Eco Innovatory, because that's where the support would start. And then if there's potential to go and get funding for an idea, maybe applying for the KTP, or maybe you're going to Innovate UK, then the project that I manage, Clean Growth UK, is something that we would then look at, because I have bid writers in the team that I manage. So if you have a moment, please go on to cleangrowthuk.org and join the network. It might have terminology that you're becoming a member, but there's no charge to that. It's just being a part of a national network that we've set up with Brighton and Portsmouth, and we've just been given the green light to have another year's funding with potential for a second year. And throughout that project, we're going to be bringing 6 more universities on board. Because the idea is, if there's a business in Liverpool that comes to us for support, if it's something that we can't do, then we'd broker a conversation with the University of Liverpool. And then if it's something that we can't do in Liverpool, then we go further afield. There's no point duplicating what's already happening around the UK. So now I'd just like to move on to the panel discussion, and I'll just introduce my colleagues, and then I'll allow them to tell you a little bit about themselves. But first of all, an apology, Mike Farragher couldn't make it today. He did tell me a couple of days ago, and I forgot to take him off the slide, so that's my bad for that one. But I've got 3 other colleagues who'll be here today. There's Damian Fearon. Damian is actually leading construction skills within
LJMU, so that might be something that you might want to ask questions about that, and he can talk about throughout the next half hour. Ana Bras is somebody that I'm doing a lot of work with. She's really proactive, and we've got FRC group and 1 or 2 others in the pipeline. Anna's a materials expert, but she's very knowledgeable in other areas. So sure, it'd be good to find out a little bit more about FRC group project from Anna, because there's a lot of detail in that in terms of what the mattresses are made out of and how she goes about testing those things in our facilities. And then Badr, who's a team leader in the built environment, and he's been leading a lot of our environmental monitoring projects for housing associations. So if I can, I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'll just go in order and ask Damian if he can just introduce himself and tell you a little bit about himself. Okay, Damian?
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Tony. Thank you for that. Yeah, as Tony said, my name is Damian Fearon. I'm one of the principal lecturers in the School of the Built Environment, Civil Engineering and Built Environment, and I work closely with both Tony and Paul Dixon in the Low Carbon Eco Innovatory. So my sort of area of interest in teaching is the sustainable organisations and sustainable business models as well. So I've looked at some work just to back up Tony's sort of variety that we have. I've worked with people who are trying to recycle in terms of a circular economy, bathtubs from houses, for example, used kitchens from houses, and keep these things, circulating around the economy. And we've worked on social marketing strategies for these types of businesses. I'm also part of becoming part of the housing innovation group that Tony works with. So we work, as Tony said, we work very closely together with the academics as a group, and as I say, there will always be a fit. There'll always be somebody who can respond to something. And as Tony touched on, the other big thing that I'm doing at the moment is this construction skills escalator. And I've just noticed a little thread developing there between, I think it was Catherine and Sue, with regard to the environmental retrofit skills shortage. And I agree with the comments you've made there. I think that's probably something that we need to look at, because we've got this Liverpool City Region Combined Authority funded what we call Construction Skills Escalator, which is meant to take stakeholders or partners on a pathway from maybe level 2, level 3 qualifications right up to level 6 degree apprentices, so keep people moving and continuing to develop throughout construction. And we're currently we're in the process of building a new space, or converting a new space within the Byram Street campus to enable us to do that. So that will be a space dedicated to improving skills within construction, particularly within the Liverpool City region. So as Catherine and Sue have both identified there, one of the key skills gaps is this notion of environmental retrofit skills. That's something that we will have to consider ourselves. So this collaborative space, again, can be used by anyone in industry and anyone in the Liverpool City region in terms of a community. So you could use it to maybe house CPD or training events for any group at all. So that's a real something to be aware of. I mean, we work closely with FE colleges around Liverpool as well. So this skills training and particularly the environmental skills gap is really important. That's something that we hope to fill in. So I'll be able to sort of answer any questions around sort of skills gap training, but also around sort of business models and circular economy models. Okay, thanks, Tony.
Thanks for that, Damian. And because I can't see, I'm just assuming that Anna's in the audience.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Yes, I am. Tony, can I share my screen?
Yeah,
can
sure.
I share my screen?
Yeah, I've just had
I think you need to enable this option.
Oh, right. I'm not sure. Paul?
Just click maybe on my name.
You can do
participant's name.
I've just made you a co-host.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just say thanks to Colin, who sent me a private thing saying I was still seeing on my screen. Thanks, Colin.
Let me see if it works. Do you see the screen?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. So I'd like just to talk a little bit about what my research team has been doing and how this led us to working in collaboration with the FRC group on the reuse of mattress to convert it into thermal insulation materials that we could use to improve the energy efficiency of social housing. So basically, my research team works in two different approaches. One is development of solutions for energy efficiency that can be used with development of prefab panels using bio-based composites, such as biofibers, mainly keratin and cellulose-based fibers, which are actually the type of materials that we also find in mattress. And then we also develop solutions to increase service life of reinforced concrete structures using also bio-inspiring techniques, because we have a microbiology lab inside the civil engineering lab with a multidisciplinary team that enables to develop these type of technologies with very low or non-environmental impact, and simultaneously decrease the number of maintenance actions and increase the service life of structures and buildings. So my team is bonded by a unique goal, which is to develop novel bio-based multifunctional composite systems to provide a solution for significant structural durability, energy savings, as well as indoor well-being and comfort. And we have experience on European level projects, Royal Society, Royal Academy of Engineering, industry projects, Institution of Civil Engineers project, and we generated over more than £4 million in research funding over the last 3 years with industry collaboration. So we are really keen on developing new partnerships on these fields, and that's why we discuss this challenge with Tony on working with FRC group and think out of the box on how to reuse and recycle these mattress, which is actually a huge opportunity. On the top of my head, I think we are wasting 2,000 tons of mattress just in Liverpool per year, which is a massive impact. And if there is a chance to reuse this type of materials, we should do that. And that's what we have been doing. I don't know if, Tony, you want to say something about this or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I believe it's 80,000 mattresses that are wasted every year.
Okay,
And I think initially, because we were doing a cleaning
yes.
mattress project with FRC a couple of years back through low carbon eco-innovatory, it was then came to light that there was actually about 65% of these that were still not suitable to be reused. And then I think what I found interesting about it is, you know, you've got mattresses that are made out of different materials. So when I've been in the meetings with yourself, Anna, and the team over at FRC, there's quite a lot there's a lot of detail attached to this. It's not simply taking a standard mattress to look at, you know, its thermal qualities. There's a lot.
Hydrothermal, because we have different, well, we have different challenges to pursue, and this is a huge opportunity. I just would like you to show you, so we have different laboratory skills, we have different laboratory equipments that we use to improve this type of materials. And then we have the chance to use the BRE houses, the LJMU exemplar houses, as Tony said, the one that has a construction typology that represents what we had before in 1920, the other on the 70s, and the modern one, which is this one on the right side of the screen, with PV panels, with more modern construction technologies used. And we use these facilities that we have on campus to scale up the technology according to the industry needs, because we can optimize specific materials and tailor them to be ready to the specific environments, such as the one of a house from the 2070s on or nowadays. So this is not only technologies that we use for new construction, this is also for building rehabilitation. So that's it. That's what I wanted to share with you.
Thanks, Anna. Well, I mean, you're obviously going to be around for the panel for any questions.
Yes.
So I'll just introduce Badr. If you can say a few words, please, Badr.
Hi, everyone. My name is Badr Abdullah. I am the program leader for Building Services Engineering and Architecture Engineering at Liverpool John Moores University. As already mentioned, so the houses we have at Liverpool John Moores are constructed as flexible R&D testing environments. The houses are designed and built reflective of today's UK housing stock. So we have the first house that's 1920s design and construction, and the second using 1970s. The third is a contemporary design features. They are fully furnished properties provided, and they provide realistic, habitable home environments to enable testing and data collection of products in developments on the realistic testbed conditions. For example, in the research, my research area is sensors and instrumentation and environmental monitoring. So we have carried a large amount of testing in the houses, for example, thermal comfort and air quality monitoring. One of the projects that we are active on at the moment is as Tony mentioned, is the Oxford House project. And we do similar work in the Oxford House project to the work we are doing in the houses. And the Oxford House project is a residential tower block consisting of 90 flats. And we've taken 5 flats and we are monitoring, we are doing environment, as Liverpool John Moores, we are doing environmental monitoring with 5 flats, pre-construction, during construction and post-construction. So the project involves changing insulation, new windows, and new heating systems in the flats. So how does this affect the energy usage, and how does it affect the behavior of the tenants? So what we are doing, we started the monitoring before the construction for a few months. We actually started the monitoring more than a year ago, and the monitoring are still going. So some of the data we are collecting are temperature, humidity, radiant temperature, energy usage, and so on. From the data, we can tell how the tenants are behaving, what energy, the energy usage in the flats.
Ooh.
And we can give advice to the tenants and to the companies, to the housing associations. This is just one example. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Badr. So now that, I mean, I'm just checking the time there. We've spoke for about 45 minutes. I was trying to keep that to half an hour. But we're more than happy to answer any questions, whether that's in the chat or if somebody just wants to speak up.
I just think it was a good point made about there's a real potential link here with the hub and the community-led housing movement in the region. It's one of the specific ambitions around Liverpool City Region's hub, is that environmental impact of the built environment of homes. So I think it'd be a really beneficial link to be made. I've just found it dead interesting. We also find it very frustrating that there's, you know, it's a key priority for government, for all of us, but it doesn't really seem to be backed by much finance at the moment.
Yeah, that was something that came through in the Low Carbon Homes event in January. I mean, if there's anyone interested that wants to be on the innovation group, that's only in its infancy at the moment, because it was seen as so there hadn't been an event around retrofit in Liverpool City Region for quite a while. So when we did that event, one of the actions that came out of it was an appetite to actually do that. So we're just in the process of setting up that group. And at the start of it, we've kind of challenged the housing associations to come to us with a brief so that we can look at what, you know, essentially we just want it to be a work plan for the university to work on, because if it's like, these are our challenges, these are the things that we're looking to address. By way of having a group that we can communicate that with, we just want to be able to set up that forum whereby, of course, we can go away and busy ourselves with research projects that are targeted to housing association needs and community interest group needs. But ultimately, we also want everybody else to talk and collaborate, and so that we can kind of learn from each other as well. So if anyone's interested in that, then I don't know how best to go about it. I mean, I can give you my email address if you want to drop me a line. It's a.seasman@ljmu.ac.uk, and we'll keep it in the loop. I'll put it in the chat.
There's a couple of questions there as well. Mark and then Sue.
Yes, thanks, Paul. The first speaker, sorry, was it Andrew, was it? So you mentioned Clean Growth UK as an organisation to join. Do they publish the sort of latest best practice guidelines that you guys in your research come up with? Is there like a best practice sort of guidance document? I'm thinking here partly from obviously my role with the New Ferry Community Land Trust, but also I work in Liverpool City Council, and this is not something I normally would get involved in, but I know that certainly me personally, it's not a subject I know a great deal about, and all of, you know, and I'm hearing more and more about how we need to be more greener with the type of housing that we have, whether we're retrofitting or new build. So all this type of research that you guys at the university are engaged in, is there some kind of best practice document that presumably will get updated from time to time as you discover new things, new ways of doing things, etc., that is commonly available, so that anyone embarking on a retrofitting project or even a new build project has got this type of latest research that you're doing to help them make certain key decisions about how they go about their scheme?
Well, I mean, I'll put that over to Damian. I'm pretty sure he'll be able to answer that, but I'll answer the first bit about Clean Growth UK. So essentially, a lot of the projects that we do through those projects are with companies. So there's usually commercial sensitivity about the data that we collect for the projects, but there will be other things out there in terms of like industry journals and stuff like that you can tap into. I'm just wondering if Damian can add to that.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. I mean, obviously the first point is you could approach both, you know, well, probably more likely Paul, the low carbon eco-eye, for information and support in that way, and then that will give you a direct support from an academic. I don't know of any particular point other than journal papers that may come off the back of some of the work that's done, but I'm not aware of any sort of gathering of best practice. We have events. I know Paul and Tony both host events that actually communicate some of the best practice and communicate the findings. So what you're probably better off doing is, because we've sort of set this link now, you're almost being invited into the community, so you can see when these events occur and then attend, and then you'll start to make connections. But there isn't actually a formal document that I'm aware of, Mark. But just picking up on something else that's been said there, we can always use this our construction skills hub. We can host events, and I'm just thinking whether it's worth me maybe hosting an event or a workshop, something around sustainable housing that might help. But there's no single document, Mark, to answer your question, sorry, directly.
I was just thinking that local authorities in particular might like to be able to have something so that, for example, when schemes come through planning, that even before it gets to the planning stage, that if councils, particularly where people would go to for information before putting their planning applications in and chatting to planners about the type of schemes that they're doing, that there was something like a best practice guide that could be published, which could be flagged up to them first. And so before they even start putting pen to paper on designs, they're already looking at green systems and the new ways of construction and so on, that would be really beneficial to them. Because I think there's a lot of people who don't really yet still understand what these new technologies are able to achieve and what's possible. I know I certainly don't, and it's a subject obviously I'm quite interested in for a number of reasons. But I think that certainly with my New Ferry CLT hat on, we certainly didn't have very much understanding about what things could be done, put into our building. And I know that the Wirral Council asked us rather belatedly, I think when the tender documents had almost been put together, can you please make sure that there's a best practice as far as environmental sustainability within the building is concerned. And they came to us at a rather late stage, and it was like, are we a bit late now to do this? Do you know what I mean? So for us, it would be really useful to have had some kind of document we could have gone to and said, do you know what, we'd like to try and do that, we'd like to try and achieve that, and we'd like to be seen to be doing that if we can, and we would have built that into our brief.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think the time to make all these decisions is before you put it perfectly, Mark, before you put pen to paper, because these decisions become more and more sustainable, or changes in it to innovative technologies as you progress through the procurement process and the design development process. So the time to do it is at the beginning. As you were speaking, then I was just typing in this, because what came to mind is the UK Council have just produced what's called a playbook, and it's a not as interesting as it sounds, like to have a workshop where you sort of think through these issues around the inclusion of sustainable technologies within a project at a very early stage. So again, I'll do what Tony does. I'll just finish my search here, and then I'll put that onto the chat as well. That is a useful document from the, as I say, the UK Green Building Council, and it just helps you to do and think about some of the things that you're talking about, Mark, at an early stage.
Can you provide a link to that document for us?
Yeah, I'll just do that for you now. Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, okay.
And also, some of the projects, or actually most of the projects we do at Liverpool John Moores University are collaborative projects. Some of them are small with companies, and some of them are funded externally. For example, the project on Oxford housing is funded by the European funding, ARDF project, and it's a very large project, and we are involved with so many partners. And I was also recently involved with the Liverpool Combined Authority on a project. Unfortunately, we didn't get the funding, but they are collaborative, and housing associations and other partners, not just local partners in the UK and from Europe, are involved in them.
Can we bring in Sue, who had a hand up, and then Maxine?
Hi there. Yeah, thanks. I've just noticed the question there about listed buildings, and how it's in the same vein, really. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to cost. Like, it's cheaper to mass produce and build new to better standards than it is to retrofit, because with retrofitting it's more intrusive and the detailing's trickier, and it also takes people, finding contractors that have got the appetite and the skills to do the work. And the typical approach seems to be to sort of upgrading your energy system on your home is to stick kingspan all around it, which it feels like really unimaginative to me. And I know that I'm an architect. I have a small practice in South Liverpool, but we have lots of individual clients that on an individual level, people have really got an appetite for green technology, but finding people that have the skills and then the maintenance skills to kind of upgrade it. So, for example, if you put an air source heat pump system in rather than a gas-fired boiler and it breaks down, like finding someone who can find the parts and all the rest of it, you've kind of got to think of the whole life cycle costings of it. And I just think there seems like to be an opportunity for community-led and council-led housing to sort of have a partnership approach to it, even maybe with energy suppliers as well, because in those circumstances, they've maybe got a little bit more time and opportunity to think things through. It's not just all about the bottom line. It's more, the profit is being reinvested back into the scheme. So I think it's quite exciting that LJMU are on the doorstep and they're doing this. And I'd love the opportunity to chat further really about some of the, like in our office, there's a real appetite for doing this. We've got a passive house designer, and one of my colleagues did a PAS 2035 course the other day, but it's sometimes difficult to kind of marry the things up that we're doing on a small scale with the big developments, because ultimately it comes down to cost cutting. So I guess all I'm saying really is I kind of agree with what you're all saying, and I think there should be a way that we could kind of get this to work. And I wonder whether it's more in I think community-led businesses and housing is the way to demonstrate it, and once it becomes more mainstream, then it's likely to be taken up by the people that are more driven by profit.
Yeah, it's probably worth just saying that so Breaking Ground, one of our objectives is to look at how we can promote and innovate, I suppose, through community-led housing schemes and explore some of these issues. So we've still got to shape what that looks like, but a lot of the projects that have taken place so far individually have sort of pushed the envelope really, but how do we connect that all together and then maybe connect in with the university and create something that could be quite of interest? And I have to say as well, I just have to say, because Ben Clay is here, Catherine and I worked for Liverpool Housing Action Trust, where Ben's father, Tom, kind of led a really kind of amazing project in Chilwell that I was very closely linked to, because I worked on the ground there, where they did all these demonstrator projects. It was an extra care scheme, and on a really big scale with one of the bungalows that was open as a demonstrator project. And sometimes it kind of feels that these things are always innovated, but then not implemented sort of long term. And it's kind of interesting that we're still at that point, really, in some ways. I don't know.
I guess it's about how it's like stage 7. So how it's like going back and having a look how it worked and what needed to be changed, and and how it's documented, I suppose, so that knowledge can be shared, because sometimes it's difficult to find that information out, which I think is the point that Mark was making as well.
Yeah. Got 2 other quick questions from Maxine and then Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've put most of what I was going to say in the chat, and I think it is a question for Damian. It's about, obviously, construction skills, particularly heritage specialist skills. I mean, to be a heritage city with a shortage of heritage skills is a real issue, I think. I mean, we occupy the last remaining Georgian terrace north of the city, and we've invested nearly £3.5 million in its renovation. And that's no mean feat for a small charitable organisation such as Rotunda. We are in the process of refurbing, and one of the investors is the Combined Authority to replace a boiler. But then obviously think about the cost savings around heating, but we also have to repoint the exterior and the envelope. But we have to use the old practices and the old skills, which aren't necessarily conducive with environmental sustainability and trying to, reduce our energy costs. I can't stick, something, to attract the heat on our roof, for example. I can't think of the name. What are they called?
Photovoltaic panels.
Yeah. So, I can't put one of those on the roof, for example, of our, of our listed building to help with some of the, the costs of our heating bills. And I think more importantly, there's an awful lot of community organisations now across the city region that are taking on asset transfer of listed buildings from local authorities without actually understanding the costs associated with the renovation of those buildings and also some of the environmental considerations of running old buildings. So I suppose for me it's about, is there money available out there? Is there guidance and support for organisations to consider those types of things when they're looking at asset transfer? And also, is there an opportunity to really put heritage skills, high on the agenda of the Combined Authority through you guys as delivering, innovation like this? So.
Thanks, Maxine. Yeah, I think that there's a lot. There was a lot in that question there, but I think that to pick up about skills, obviously there's heritage skills, and then obviously there's retrofit skills to heritage building, and there's retrofit skills generally to normal buildings, because there's problems in all three of those areas. See, we have a real skills shortage. The Liverpool City region did like a skills gap analysis in construction, and this is why we ended up with this construction skills elevator being set up. But even within that, we are now working with the FE colleges who are obviously providing craft skills training, but there's so few people who are able to teach, let alone deliver the service. In a sense, it's a real problem. But that, I think that in itself, I think you have to go further. And I know someone mentioned before the CAT, the Centre for Alternative Technology in Wales. Again, they do some craft courses there, I know, but I can't think of many places that actually teach craft skills locally here anymore. And it's just from my own experience, my son was looking for work as a joiner, as an apprentice joiner, and couldn't get anything despite, without being political, the government rhetoric around, funding for, skills, craft skills. It just doesn't seem to exist. So there are issues, and I think we can possibly try and address it through our construction skills elevator with our contact both with Liverpool City region upstream, if you like, and then further or downstream with the FE colleges. We can start talking to them about this demand for particularly heritage and for this retrofit of the environmental ecological retrofit of existing houses, which is a big issue, because it's our existing housing stock, it's our legacy housing stock that will cause us the real problems, particularly once we start moving forward with more ecological houses in accordance with the Future Home Standard from in the next few years. So yeah, I agree, but I say I don't know of any funding, but I can start the conversation with our construction skills escalator, both with Liverpool City region and also with the FE providers as well.
Thank you. And just for the record, solar panels was what I was looking for.
Oh, right, okay. I was using the posh academics version, you see.
Brian, do you want to go in the last question?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of wrap up. I think just one of the reasons for trying to get this session going today was really just highlight what's going on, what the university are doing, what the capability is. And I think from the various chats and comments coming, that there's a lot that can be gained. But what I'd really like to try to open up is that if somebody like Mark and what you're trying to do in New Ferry have a specific question, you now know you can go to Tony or you can go to Damian or whatever. Can we try and keep it all fed through Paul, through the hub as much as we can? Because as projects develop at very different stages, then the experience that one has had may not be as relevant at this time for another one, but 3 months down the line, they certainly need to know. And then through the hub, what Paul is able to say, oh, well, we have got some information on that. So it's really, if we could try to keep everything fed through Paul, I know it's rather imposing a lot on him, as things going. But the hub really should be becoming the font of all knowledge and information that is available.
I think just to add to that, I mean, we've got a clear picture. There's about 31 projects now across the region, and we kind of know what those projects are. Small, well, not all small scale, but community-led projects. And maybe there is a conversation we build from here today. And I really thank Brian for setting this up, to connect in with yourselves and look at which of those projects might be worth then building a collective conversation around. Because again, one group I'm particularly thinking of, Persons Unknown, that Catherine's been doing some work with, they want to be quite innovative in what they build, and it's a small scale project, and maybe there could be some synergies. But if we do it in a coordinated way, I think that might work for both sides, really. I think that would be good, definitely. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap up there and really thank Tony and the team for stepping up at short notice. And we didn't do too badly, but I think it's really opened up the conversation in terms of how we move forward with the hub. And it is one of our 5 objectives that everybody wanted to have in what we're trying to do with the community-led housing movement. So thanks very much, Brian, for making the connections, and thank you everyone for attending, and thank you for your presentation. Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Paul.